So I feel there's been enough discussion on the channel this week of Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury and the heavyweights. So I thought I'd try and do something different. A video's just gone up on the Box Nation YouTube channel. You can check it out. It's free to view. It's called Face to Face. Gervonta Davis and Floyd Mayweather and Liam Walsh and Frank Warren. It appears that this was filmed a day or two after, the same day most likely as when Floyd and Gervonta Davis came over for the press conference. And really, I guess you could say, it's Box Nation's attempt at a gloves are off type program. It's the closest thing you can compare it to is that, but with the two promoters present. So you've got a big round table and you've got a presenter, Frank and Liam Walsh one side, Gervonta Davis and Floyd Mayweather the other side. So I won't give too much of a spoiler away when I say I'm not going to be totally complimentary about this 20 minutes of tape. So before I get into that and before I get into the negativity, I'm going to start by saying I do applaud the efforts of Box Nation and BT Sports for at least trying to do something different. You know, a lot of their fights, a lot of their fighters have been criticised for going under the radar. And I think doing some programming like this is a good idea. You know, it can only help to raise the profile of their fighters and fights. A guy like Liam Walsh is probably not the most known outside of the boxing hardcore, and having him in a 20-minute video that features Floyd Mayweather can only help because, you know, Mayweather is a massive draw. Having said that, this is a fairly budget comparison to a gloves are off, and at times it actually felt embarrassingly budget. Rather than a slick TV studio environment, it appeared to my eye that this was filmed in a hotel room. Indeed, at one point, or at several points, a sort of bright green fire exit sign is visible during the footage. You know, it's kind of bizarre if you compare it to you know, the gloves are off programming that happens on Sky. I also feel it was very questionable as to how Liam Walsh was really going to necessarily come across and be portrayed. You just wonder whether Liam Walsh is a good foil for Floyd Mayweather and Gervonta Davis. Walsh is a nice guy, but he's softly spoken. He's not someone who sells the fight. He's not someone who you know, gets involved in the drama of a build-up, or certainly hasn't done in his fights before. Really, Floyd Mayweather is just allowed to run completely riot throughout the course of this 20-minute program. Frank Warren and Liam Walsh are pretty much mute throughout large parts of this programming. They did seem to wake up and interject during, you know, parts, but realistically, if this is 20 minutes long, a good 15 minutes is Floyd Mayweather talking about himself, with Gervonta Davis taking up the majority of the other elements of the programming. The episode starts with the presenter seeming to lead the questioning down the path of both guys having very hard upbringings, and for me that wasn't necessarily a sensible way of starting you know, the interview. Floyd Mayweather and Gervonta Davis do a fairly you know, a fairly good job of doing the sort of whole American from the streets, hard upbringing, would be in prison or would be dead, you know, that sort of classic boxing story. Whereas Liam Walsh, by contrast, you know, he even admits that his upbringing wasn't rough compared to Gervonta Davis, and it kind of looks hard for him to try and portray that, even though it's being suggested that he's had a tough upbringing. It just seemed like a very odd and dubious way to start, a slightly awkward way of starting the programming from my perspective. Floyd Mayweather really, I don't know if he was bored after 5 or 6 minutes, but he really then decides to start like adding the heat. He said his methodology is kill or be killed, and then he looks at Liam Walsh and says, "You're going to be killed." Mayweather calls Liam Walsh an old man, or asks Liam Walsh how old he is, and Liam Walsh agrees that at 30 he is an old man. Gervonta Davis pipes up and says that Gervonta Davis believes he has more experience than Liam Walsh, and Liam Walsh nods politely and agrees that Gervonta Davis probably does have more experience, highlighting, and then Liam Walsh then proceeded to highlight his complete lack of amateur experience. I just felt it was a very, very, very strange set. You have a look at the footage as well, and you tell me if it's strange, but I really feel that maybe some sort of training or some sort of direction should have gone to Liam Walsh ahead of this. I'm not saying everything has to be manufactured. I'm not saying everyone has to be the sort of gentle giant persona that Anthony Joshua has on Sky. But Liam Walsh was possibly doing the opposite of selling a fight. And, with Floyd Mayweather talking about skyscrapers and Bugattis and diamonds on the wrist, at one point, presumably jokingly, Mayweather suggests to Frank Warren that they have a 50 million bet on the outcome of the fight, which kind of shows the levels at work when the presenter then turns to Liam Walsh and asks him if the Farmy Army is going to be present when the two square off at the Copper Box. I'm just trying to think if I've got all of my points down. Realistically, as I say, this programming is Floyd Mayweather and Gervonta Davis running riot, pointing at Liam Walsh and saying easy work, telling him he's going to be killed. It's Floyd Mayweather absolutely running riot, consistently talking about himself, consistently talking about his own career. And for my money, it's Liam Walsh and Frank Warren nodding politely and being very subservient and submissive towards Floyd Mayweather. It's the right idea, but it's the wrong execution. For me, it comes across as a bit awkward. The whole programming is awkward, and it borderlined on being, I personally felt at times, it borderlined on being uncomfortable viewing. I also wonder whether it will actually fill its purpose of generating hype for the fight. I kind of agree that any visibility and publicity for Liam Walsh is a good thing, because I think his profile is very low. But realistically, you're not looking at that piece of footage and thinking yourself, this is going to be a great fight, or even this is going to be a competitive fight. You're kind of looking at that footage, seeing it as a much hyped prospect in Gervonta Davis coming over in what is a near certainty victory against Liam Walsh. I feel that it could have been a success if things had been dealt with differently. I think they really should have made an effort to at least have hired some sort of studio for the event. I appreciate Mayweather and Davis were probably only over for a short period of time, but I do think that holding it in what does appear to be a hotel room with mirrors in the background and with fire exit signs visible only sort of compounds the image that Box Nation kind of has at the minute amongst boxing fans as a bit of a bargain basement operation. I also feel a bit more, a bit more training or a bit more suggestion could have gone to Liam Walsh beforehand about things he could have said to maybe hype the fight. Don't agree necessarily that he's an old man at 30. I know he did it sort of jokingly and with a smile on his face. Don't agree that Gervonta Davis, who's 19 years old, has more experience. I think those would have been a start. I'd also have liked to have seen Liam Walsh maybe talk more about some of the problems stylistically he could give Gervonta Davis in the ring. I think this is a hardcore fight. This is a fight that's going to appeal to the boxing masses. That's it. I mean, it's hard. I don't know what I think about this. In a way, I'm glad they've done it because I think it's the right idea and I think it's at least the start of moving in the right direction. But in another way, I kind of think it's done. I think it's a missed opportunity, and I think it's highlighted the sort of bargain basement element of Box Nation. And in many ways, I'm sure fighters make their decisions on more complex matters. But if you were one of the matchroom fighters and you were considering jumping over to BT Sports and jumping over to Box Nation, and you maybe had a look at the build-up and the hype some recent matchroom fights have had, and you contrasted it with this face-to-face as a sort of gloves are off comparison, you wouldn't think you were joining the slickest of operations. Let me know your thoughts on this. I don't want to be too harsh because I do think it's the right idea. I really do. I just think it was handled very poorly. But let me know your thoughts on it. I thought the questioning was bad. I thought the setting was bad. I thought the fact that Floyd Mayweather was allowed to run riot was bad. And I thought Liam Walsh could have been given a bit more of a hand in terms of getting more time to put his points across and maybe being asked the right kind of questions to mean he put the right kinds of point across. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please take the time to hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, you haven't done so before, do subscribe. Many thanks indeed as always for tuning in.